Mystery behind death of Napoleon Bonaparte from Mystery Diaries. Napoleon Bonaparte is one of the most studied historical figures in European history who once ruled 70 million people and dominated Europe, was born on August 15, 1769 and died on May 5, 1821, at the age of 51. After the defeat of the Napoleonic army at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, Napoleon was exiled to the small island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic, where he died 6 years later. Since his death in British custody on the island of St. Helena in 1821, the claims that Napoleon Bonaparte was either murdered or spirited off the island have never completely gone away. Not surprisingly, amongst the many mysteries still surrounding the cause of his death, and particularly the suspicion that he was poisoned, continue to intrigue medical historians. The aim of this review is to use a multidisciplinary approach to provide a systematic and critical assessment of Napoleon's cause of death. My death is premature. I have been assassinated by the English oligopoly and their hired murderer. These were the spiteful words of Napoleon Bonaparte when he dictated his last will and testament in April 1821. One of history's most accomplished manipulators, Napoleon was a man who took his vendettas to the grave. The day after his death in British custody on May 5, 16 observers attended the autopsy, 7 doctors among them. They were unanimous in their conclusion that Napoleon had died of stomach cancer. When the private papers of Napoleon's valet de chambre were published in the 1950s, offering intimate accounts of the emperor's final days, out of 31 symptoms of arsenic poisoning discovered by scientists since 1821, Napoleon presented 28. Neutron Activation Analysis, NAAP, was carried out on hairs from Napoleon's head dated to 1816, 1817, and 1818 and revealed fatally high levels of arsenic in his systems. This colorful theory did not convince everyone, however. Even if arsenic had killed Napoleon, this did not mean someone had killed Napoleon with arsenic. In the 1980s, the poisoning debate veered in a different direction, theorizing that Napoleon could simply have absorbed enough arsenic from his environment to kill him off. A 19th-century house was saturated in arsenic, cosmetics, hair tonic, cigarettes, sealing wax, cooking pots, insect repellent powders, rat poison, cake icing, all were toxic. From the wallpapers used in Napoleon's last home, discovered poisonous gases exhaled by a mold growing behind it could even have contributed to Napoleon's fatal decline. Later researchers tested hair from Napoleon's son, his first wife, the Empress Josephine, and 10 living persons, and concluded that Europeans in the early 19th century had up to 100 times more arsenic in their bodies than the average person living now. Different country agencies carried out forensic tests, and all confirmed that high levels of arsenic had been present in Napoleon's system, but still no one could definitely answer the question of how the poison had got there. Meanwhile, a second debate rumbled away in the background: substitution. The idea of the substitute emperor has been used in films and novels, and certainly, Napoleon's more besotted admirers were and are sure that he lived on, and that the man who died on May 5 was someone else. The most startling version of the substitution theories claims that Napoleon never went to St. Helena at all, that a double was dispatched in his place while the ex-emperor retired to Verona and peaceably sold spectacles, until he was shot attempting to scale the walls of an Austrian palace to see his young son. Sadly, the tale has no documentary basis whatsoever. A second substitution theory revolves around Jean-Baptiste Cipriani, butler at Longwood House until his death in February 1818 during a hepatitis epidemic, and buried nearby. The Cipriani school claims that the British secretly dug up Napoleon's body in the late 1820s for inexplicable reasons of their own. When faced with a French request in 1840 to disinter Napoleon and bring him back to Paris, the British therefore hurriedly dug Cipriani up and dropped him into Napoleon's empty tomb. Why, the Cipriani school has demanded, did the British officer in charge allow the French observers present to see the body only at midnight, by torchlight? Why would he not allow sketches to be made? Why the coffin was only opened for 2 minutes before it was shut up again and taken aboard the French frigate? The death did not come suddenly. For months Napoleon suffered from abdominal pain, nausea, night sweats and fever. When he was not constipated, he was assailed by diarrhea. He lost weight. He complained of headaches, weak legs and discomfort in bright light. His speech became slurred. The night sweats left him drenched. His gums, lips, and nails were colorless. Briefly, he got it into his head that he was being poisoned, but then he decided he had the same cancer that had killed his father, and that all medical help was useless. On May 4, 1821, he lost consciousness. On May 5, news went out to a shocked world that the great man was dead, and the questions began. The Irish doctor Barry O'Meara, who had been Napoleon's ship surgeon during the War of Waterloo, and became Napoleon's personal physician in exile. Napoleon had a cunning plan to escape St. Helena by claiming its unhealthy climate was fatally weakening him, and using Dr. O'Meara's medical authority in support. O'Meara in 1818 accused Governor Low of attempting to hasten Napoleon's death, and in 1822, he published a book claiming the British government had been determined to eliminate all possibility of another Napoleonic comeback. Many people suspected O'Meara was right, but nobody could prove it. No method yet existed to prove the presence of arsenic in a corpse, and Napoleon's was, in any case, buried in 4 coffins and under a large slab of rock. If Napoleon had been murdered, it looked as if the killer had got away with it. The more prosaic truth is that Napoleon's body certainly lies under the Dome of Les Invalides in Paris. However, until French authorities allow the coffin to be opened for tests, theories will continue to swirl, some in respectable books and some in the more excitable corners of the internet, about the ultimate fate of one of history's most fascinating characters. Thanks for watching guys, and see you in the next video.